BlackRock, the big story. Larry Fink, the CEO, has just said some pretty crazy stuff about Bitcoin. So let's talk about it. You can see right here, Larry Fink says crypto is digitizing gold and the BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF could help make the sector more democratized. Okay, that's very, very exciting. You see, what is going on right now with BlackRock, they're trying to get a Bitcoin ETF, and BlackRock gets Bitcoin ETFs. They've had 575 Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, all ETFs approved, 575 different ETFs approved, and only one ETF not approved. Now, that is a pretty damn good track record, if you ask me. Now, to have Larry Fink coming out saying, hey, you know what? Bitcoin is digital gold. That's pretty damn big. This guy is the CEO of the biggest asset manager in the world. What he says is important. What he says is relevant. People listen when he speaks. It's a damn big deal to see BlackRock getting into the Bitcoin ETF scene, and to have now Larry out there publicly talking about how Bitcoin's basically digital gold. Nice. Welcome to the party, Larry, by the way. We've only been saying that Bitcoin's digital gold for the past, ever, basically. Also, check this out here. This is something I posted earlier. So this man, Larry Fink, who is Larry Fink? He is the boss of people like Gary Gensler. He is the boss of people like Elizabeth Warren. This man now likes Bitcoin. Now, he's been talking about crypto for a while. Of course, BlackRock launched their Bitcoin private fund back about August or maybe September last year, just before the bottom came in for the bear market. They also added Bitcoin to their global macro fund. And now, of course, they're pursuing a Bitcoin ETF, and they are going to get it because they are BlackRock. This man, Larry Fink, is going to pump our bags. But this man, we must remember, is not our friend. BlackRock has the power to pump our bags to high heavens. And who doesn't want to see their bags pump? Everybody wants to see their bags pump. But you have to keep it real. BlackRock is not here for you. They're not here for me. BlackRock's here for BlackRock. BlackRock is here to control, capture, manipulate, and do everything that they traditionally do in markets. BlackRock's not your friend. JP Morgan's not your friend. Goldman Sachs is not your friend. Fidelity's not your friend. None of these organizations are here for us. They're not our friends. But they will pump our bags. So I'm here for that. Let's get excited about that, I suppose. Now, it's been pretty crazy over the last week because we have seen an incredible amount of financial giants filing for spot Bitcoin ETFs. Of course, BlackRock kicked it off, and then we saw a big rush of companies largely reapplying for Bitcoin ETFs, but also some applying anew. So we had Fidelity, $4.5 trillion asset manager, BlackRock for $10 trillion, by the way. We saw ARK Invest, together with 21 shares, refiling their Bitcoin ETF application. Wisdom Tree, Valkyrie, Bitwise, and Invesco, $1.5 trillion asset manager as well. Spot Bitcoin ETFs. What is very, very important to understand here is that all of these will require Bitcoin behind them. So if they want to have 10,000 Bitcoin worth of Bitcoin ETF products at BlackRock, for example, they're going to need to buy 10,000 Bitcoin off of the spot markets and move it over. Canadian Bitcoin ETFs, for example, have seen tens of thousands of Bitcoin sucked into the vortex of these Bitcoin ETF products. And Canada's only about 2% of the global equity markets. US capital markets are about 52 to 54%, depending on the day, of global equity markets. So kind of a bit of a bigger deal seeing all these massive players, the biggest of big players in financial markets, all pursuing a Bitcoin ETF product. So pretty gosh darn exciting. Now, some Bitcoin ETF thoughts here for you. I love this picture, by the way. The proposal in of itself is enough to really light markets up, to get everyone very, very excited, right? If we get an approval, that would send markets absolutely freaking wild. If we get a denial, that's probably going to tank markets. Although we're just going to see them renegotiate and reapply. And we've seen plenty of denials before. the BlackRock denial would just be the latest in a long string of denials, but BlackRock doesn't like getting denied. I would imagine that BlackRock, if they were to get denied by an overzealous SEC, they're going to put in some phone calls to the right people in the right places, and we will see things happen because that's the kind of organization that they are. Listing, when it happens, this, I think, will be a sell the news event, much like we saw with gold ETFs back in the early 2000s, much like we saw with the CBOE and the CME Bitcoin futures contracts in 2017. The release of those basically marked the top of the market. And also we saw, for example, like the Coinbase IPO, April 2021, basically marking the top of the market. So we have these big events that get the entire market bullish, the entire market to be excited about what's happening. And then it happens, and, sell the news. El Salvador legalizing Bitcoin as, legal tender in the country. Incredible news. And that marked the top in late 2021, right? That was a big sell the news event if there ever was one. So when we do eventually get a Bitcoin ETF listing, I expect, once again, we're going to see a sell the news event coming into play here. However, long-term bullish, because keep in mind, they got to buy real Bitcoin to back all this stuff. So if we have 100,000 Bitcoin ETF products, or 100,000 Bitcoin backing all of these Bitcoin ETF products, that all has to be bought off the open markets. There's only around 2 million coins currently sitting on the market. That means the number will go up, essentially. Now, if we're looking at an approximate timeline for all of this stuff to be taking place here, this is currently the calendar that we're looking at. So, of course, they filed back in mid-June there. Late June, they had a filing published on the Federal Register for comments. August 12th, we're going to have an approved, deny, or extend for 45 days from the SEC. We'll see what their decision is. September 26th, another approve, deny, extend option for 90 days. December 25th, 2023, approve, deny, extend for 60 more days. And February 2024 is the final deadline when the SEC has to either crap or get off the pot and say, hey, we're either going to approve or deny your application here. And then, of course, the following month, what do we have? The Bitcoin halving. I mean, if it got pushed out that far, it would coincide so well, it would be ridiculous. Ridiculous. So we shall see. Now, also to keep in mind, this is the filing dates and deadline dates for all of the different applications we see in right now. ARK's 21 shares Bitcoin ETF up first here, December 27th, 2023. They are first in line, essentially, for a final deadline from the SEC, with a whole bunch of different filings going right through March 2024. So imagine if all of them get approved and we see the SEC allow 7 or 8 different Bitcoin ETF products to come out. I mean, this would be extraordinarily big news. It would all align perfectly with the Bitcoin halving narrative next year. It would just explode markets because you see Bitcoin halving plus a bunch of Bitcoin ETF products coming out. It's hard to imagine a more bullish scenario, right? Also, to keep in mind, some people are kind of saying, well, Bitcoin ETF may not actually be that big of a deal. Bitcoin ETFs are a damn big deal because a lot of people aren't going to go and buy Bitcoin on Coinbase. They're just not, but they are interested in Bitcoin, and it will, of course, then get added into bigger bundle ETF products, right? A lot of people want to, get money into their pensions, their retirement accounts, their 401ks, their IRAs, whatever kind of stuff they have, right? And a Bitcoin ETF product is going to allow them to do that. Remember, there's like tens of trillions of dollars in retirement accounts in the USA. Even a fraction of that money starting to get exposure to Bitcoin via ETF products would be absolutely freaking huge. So the implications here for these ETF products, again, in a capital market that accounts for over 50% of global capital markets, is massive. Not only will we see it going into retirement accounts, we're going to see it added into new ETF products, right? They'll bundle it up and put it with other stuff and so on and so forth. It will be massive, allow for a whole new level of speculation in the asset. Also, hear me now, quote me later, but I imagine that once we get a Bitcoin ETF approval from BlackRock, we're going to see an Ethereum ETF following not too far behind. So definitely something to keep an eye out for there. Now, some ideas of how we could see things playing out here, maybe a BlackRock ETF. Maybe just the application itself is enough to pump the market up to, well, that $45,000 to $48,000 range that I've been talking about a lot. Maybe we'll finally see 48K this year. That would, of course, align with about a 30% under previous all-time high, which has happened in 2 of the previous cycles. So be a logical area to keep an eye out for. Obviously, if we see everything align, then next year is going to be very, very exciting. 2024, we have all these ETF applications approved where we have the Bitcoin halving happening. Of course, then leading us into our blow off top sometime late in 2024, or perhaps into early 2025 or mid 2025, but there will be that blow off top. Now, before we get into the rest of the Bitcoin ETF news, just a reminder, if you're not signed up for my newsletter yet, you got to get it checked out. It's called Wealth Mastery. It's a cryptocurrency investor report. My team and I spend about 40 hours a week putting this thing together for you to read in about 10 minutes in a quick email. The latest news, the latest happening with DeFi, NFTs, altcoins, airdrops. One of the airdrops that we covered recently was Maverick. This is a new exchange, a decentralized exchange. We covered this in a tutorial, and had you done the tutorial and participated, some people got $6,000 to $8,000, $6,000 to $8,000. So that's crazy stuff. Definitely check it out. If you're not signed up yet, there is a link in the description here. Now, this is something I like what Jay had to say here, because this is pretty interesting. There's a series of trades that are talked about again and again. Burry and the Big Short. Soros' bet against the pound. But there's one happening right now that we're all witnessing. It's Saylor's move of short fiat long BTC pair trade. It's pretty gosh darn interesting. I think that what Michael Saylor is doing at MicroStrategy could go down as one of like the bet of bets. So last week, MicroStrategy bought another 12,333 Bitcoin for $347 million, an average price of $28,136 per coin. My only question is, like, how is there any office furniture at all left at the MicroStrategy office? Like, they must have sold everything. Tear the copper out of the wires, sell it all. We're buying Bitcoin, guys. It's crazy, crazy stuff, man. Absolute crazy. MicroStrategy is taking stacking Bitcoin to like the extremes here. And you have to keep in mind the numbers, because the numbers are absolutely insane that they have right now. They have 152,000 Bitcoin. They spent $4.5 billion on their Bitcoin, an average price of $29,668 per Bitcoin, meaning they're currently just in profit, right? However, let's fast forward to a world where all the biggest asset managers are releasing Bitcoin ETF products, right? Where we see massive scarcity kicking, or we see central banks competing for it, or we see countries mining Bitcoin, where we see more countries make it legal tender, or we see more cities make it legal tender, or we see an increased adoption of Bitcoin all around the world for people to make cross-border payments and all this kind of stuff. What happens when Bitcoin's worth $500,000 per coin? What happens when Bitcoin's worth $1 million per coin? And MicroStrategy holds, well, currently 152,000 of them, and I don't think they're done stacking. I think MicroStrategy is going to buy a lot more Bitcoin. To put this into perspective for you, because this is very interesting. See, right now there's about 2.25 million Bitcoin sitting on exchanges. That is before MicroStrategy buys up the rest of it. That is before Fidelity and BlackRock and Invesco and all these other guys release their Bitcoin ETF products. MicroStrategy, when they bought 12,000 Bitcoin last week, that equaled around 0.6% of the remaining supply on exchanges. That may not sound like the biggest number, but that's just one company, one organization bought 0.6% of the remaining supply sitting on exchanges last week. That is actually pretty crazy when you think about it. There's just not enough cheap BTC for BlackRock and Fidelity and all these other guys to go around, right? Turbo scarcity is coming for Bitcoin, and it's coming a lot sooner than a lot of people think. I just keep stacking those sats, guys. Trying to keep my life simple. Stack up that Bitcoin a little bit every week. Taking a long-term picture. We'll see how it plays out, of course.